Introduction. A voice written in the stars. Astrology has always lived in the margins, somewhere between the mystical and the misunderstood. For centuries, it has been dismissed by those who demanded strict logic and science, yet cherished by people seeking meaning, guidance, or simply a poetic way of connecting with the cosmos. Among the contemporary voices that have managed to bring astrology into the mainstream while keeping its soul intact, one stands out clearly: Chani Nicholas. Known as the astrologer for the people, Chani has reshaped the way we think about horoscopes, star signs, and birth charts. For her, astrology is not about predicting fate with rigid certainty, but about unlocking a language of symbols that can help us better understand ourselves, our relationships, and our place in a wider society. She merges the deeply personal with the broadly political, weaving together the cycles of the planets with the struggles, hopes, and healing of human lives. Her journey is not only about astrology as a practice, but astrology as a voice, a way to speak to individuals, to communities, and even to generations. Unlike traditional astrologers who often spoke in absolute terms, Chani insists that astrology is a tool, a guide, a mirror, and an invitation to growth. What makes her unique is her commitment to accessibility. She translates ancient archetypes into words that resonate with modern readers. She makes astrology inclusive, grounded in compassion, and tied deeply to the realities of the present. Her work acknowledges pain, trauma, and injustice, while offering astrology as a framework for healing, self-acceptance, and empowerment. In this journey through her philosophy, we will explore 10 central themes that define her voice. Each chapter will examine not only what she teaches, but why her message resonates so powerfully in today's world. From the healing potential of astrology to its role in social justice, to the way she interprets the moon as a rhythm for emotional life, her ideas form a tapestry that is both cosmic and deeply human. This is not just the story of an astrologer. It is the story of how one person has reimagined an ancient practice to meet the needs of a world searching for connection, clarity, and care. Chapter 1. The Making of an Astrologer. Chani Nicholas's story begins not in the stars, but in the very human struggles of finding identity, safety, and belonging. Before she became one of the most recognizable voices in modern astrology, she was a child growing up in a world that felt both fascinating and, at times, deeply disorienting. Born in British Columbia, Canada, Chani was exposed to astrology early, not in a formal academic sense, but as part of the cultural background noise of the New Age movement that was flourishing in the late 20th century. At first, astrology seemed like a curiosity, a mystical language she didn't yet understand, but as her life unfolded, it became a mirror that helped her navigate her most formative experiences. From a young age, Chani was aware that her path would not follow conventional scripts. She grew up queer in a world that did not always make space for difference, and she understood early the importance of finding frameworks that could affirm rather than diminish one's individuality. Astrology began to reveal itself as one of those frameworks. It was never about predicting the future for her. Instead, it was about asking the right questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How do I grow into myself in a way that honors my truth? Her teenage years and early 20s were marked by exploration, both personal and spiritual. She gravitated toward practices that emphasized healing, resilience, and self-inquiry. It was during this time that she began to study astrology in a serious way. Not satisfied with shallow horoscope columns, Chani immersed herself in ancient texts, astrological traditions, and contemporary reinterpretations. She became fascinated by the depth of the natal chart, seeing it as a living map of potential. Where others saw destiny, she saw possibility. Where some claimed rigid rules, she sensed fluidity, nuance, and empowerment. A pivotal part of Chani's journey was her decision to merge astrology with her own personal healing process. Like many, she had endured moments of hardship and marginalization. Astrology gave her not only a language for those struggles, but also a way to reframe them. Instead of seeing difficulties as personal failings, she began to view them as archetypal challenges, patterns inscribed in the cosmos that offered opportunities for growth. This was not about escaping responsibility, but about cultivating compassion. Her chart, like anyone's, was not a sentence. It was an invitation. As she deepened her studies, she also found her way into communities that would shape her perspective on astrology. She encountered teachers who emphasized technical precision and others who highlighted the symbolic, spiritual, and psychological dimensions. She absorbed both approaches, but always filtered them through her own lived experience. In time, she developed a style that was uniquely hers, rigorous enough to honor tradition, yet flexible enough to speak to contemporary realities. Chani's move to the United States marked another turning point. Settling in Los Angeles, she found herself at the intersection of art, spirituality, and activism. It was in this environment that her astrology practice began to flourish. What set her apart was not just her knowledge of planets and signs, but her ability to weave them into narratives that felt personal, relevant, and healing. Over the years, she built a reputation for being an astrologer who could articulate the language of the stars in a way that was inclusive and affirming. Her work centered queer voices, survivors, and those often left out of mainstream narratives. She understood that astrology had historically been dismissed as frivolous or superstitious, but she also recognized its radical potential. For her, astrology was not about prediction, it was about empowerment, justice, and healing. What makes the making of Chani Nicholas so compelling is not only her mastery of astrology, but also the way she fused it with her lived truth. Every step of her personal journey, her struggles with identity, her search for healing, her encounters with marginalization, became part of the foundation upon which her astrology was built. She did not arrive at her role as a leading voice in modern astrology by chance. She cultivated it deliberately, merging discipline with intuition, scholarship with empathy. Looking back, it is clear that Chani's early influences shaped the essence of her philosophy. Astrology was never just about the stars for her. It was about the people who looked up at them, longing for meaning. It was about providing tools for those who needed validation, a sense of belonging, and a reminder that their lives had significance. Her own experience of finding refuge in astrology became the seed for the work she would later share with thousands and eventually millions. By the time she published her best-selling book, You Were Born for This, and launched the Chani app, the seeds planted in her early years had fully bloomed. But those achievements were the result of decades of growth, decades of turning astrology from a youthful curiosity into a profound practice of healing and empowerment. The making of an astrologer, in Chani's case, was not simply about acquiring knowledge of planetary aspects or zodiac signs. It was about making a life that could hold both struggle and beauty, both pain and resilience, and translating that experience into a language that others could understand. In this way, her own chart became a living testament, not of fate, but of freedom. Chapter 2: Astrology as a Tool for Healing. For Chani Nicholas, astrology is not a rigid system of prediction, but a dynamic language of healing. At the heart of her philosophy lies the conviction that the stars do not dictate our destiny, but rather reflect the patterns, possibilities, and wounds that we carry within us. She often emphasizes that astrology is not about fear, nor about accepting some cosmic script written long before our birth. Instead, it is a practice that can uncover what hurts, illuminate what needs attention, and guide us toward the resources we already possess to begin the work of repair. This perspective radically shifts the way many people encounter astrology. For centuries, astrology has often been treated as a means of predicting fortune, misfortune, or a preordained fate. Yet Chani's approach dismantles that narrative. In her teachings, the birth chart becomes less of a prison sentence and more of a field guide. Each planetary alignment speaks not of inevitability, but of opportunities to recognize both our pain and our resilience. Healing, in her view, is not about erasing wounds, but about learning how to live with them consciously, integrating them into a fuller sense of self. One of the ways Chani reframes astrology as healing is through language itself. She avoids fatalistic phrases like, "you will always struggle with this," or "this placement is doomed." Instead, she uses affirming, empowering words. "This is a place where life has tested you, but also where you carry profound wisdom." In doing so, she reclaims astrology from its history of fear-mongering and turns it into a compassionate mirror. Her readings invite people not to fear their chart, but to embrace it, flaws and all, as a tool for self-discovery. A central component of this healing approach is acknowledging trauma. Chani has long spoken about how astrology can help people name and contextualize their pain. When she interprets a chart, she sees not only the gifts, but also the struggles encoded in planetary aspects and placements. For instance, a challenging Saturn aspect might suggest lessons of limitation or responsibility, but for her, it also highlights resilience and endurance. Mars, often associated with conflict, can also reveal the ways in which anger protects us or signals boundaries that have been crossed. In her hands, astrology becomes not a judgment, but a vocabulary for discussing the complexities of human experience. Importantly, Chani situates healing not only on the individual level, but also within collective contexts. She reminds her readers and students that our personal struggles do not exist in isolation. The cosmos, after all, speaks to collective rhythms as much as it does to individual ones. When we understand our birth chart, we begin to see how our personal challenges connect with broader cultural and generational patterns. In this way, astrology becomes a bridge between inner healing and collective awareness. Healing ourselves, she suggests, is one way to heal the world. The accessibility of her approach has brought countless people who once felt alienated by astrology back into its embrace. For those who feared their chart might be a list of shortcomings, Chani offers a new lens. Your chart is not a curse, but a compass.
For those who grew up in environments where their identities were dismissed or erased, she emphasizes that astrology can affirm and validate who you are. In her hands, the zodiac ceases to be a set of stereotypes and becomes a map toward wholeness. Chani also highlights the importance of cycles in the healing process. Just as planets orbit in repeating rhythms, so too do human experiences of struggle and recovery. She often reminds her community that setbacks are not failures, but part of a larger rhythm of growth. The retrogrades, eclipses, and transits that many fear are reinterpreted as opportunities for recalibration. Just as the moon wanes before it waxes again, healing, too, comes in phases. One of her most powerful contributions is the reminder that astrology can give language to what has previously been unnamed. For many, trauma and emotional wounds are difficult to articulate. Astrology provides a symbolic framework that can hold those experiences, giving them shape without reducing them to pathology. In this sense, astrology becomes not only a tool for healing, but also for storytelling, a way to narrate our pain, resilience, and transformation. Critically, Chani's emphasis on healing never excludes practicality. She does not suggest that astrology replaces therapy, activism, or direct action. Rather, she views it as complementary. A chart reading might reveal the archetypal patterns at play in a person's struggles, but the healing itself happens through lived choices. Therapy sessions, acts of self-care, the courage to set boundaries, or participation in communities that affirm one's worth. Astrology, in her view, helps clarify where to focus our energy, but it does not absolve us of the work. This fusion of symbolism and practicality is perhaps why her voice resonates with such a wide audience. She bridges the mystical and the tangible, the cosmic and the everyday. For her, healing through astrology does not mean escaping the material world, but engaging with it more fully, with greater awareness and compassion. Ultimately, Chani redefines what astrology can mean in a contemporary world hungry for meaning. By framing it as a tool for healing, she transforms it into a practice of care, resilience, and empowerment. In her words and teachings, the stars do not bind us. They remind us that healing is always possible, that our struggles are part of a larger rhythm, and that we are never alone in our journey toward wholeness.
Chapter 3. Birth Charts as Personal Maps. For Chani Nicholas, the birth chart is far more than a diagram of planets frozen in time. It is, in her words, a kind of map of potential, a symbolic cartography of one's inner landscape that reveals both challenges and gifts. To her, astrology is not about prediction in the rigid sense, but about locating oneself in the ongoing dialogue between the heavens and the human spirit. The moment of birth is like a cosmic snapshot, a unique alignment of energies that, when interpreted thoughtfully, can guide someone toward deeper self-knowledge and empowerment. In her approach, a birth chart functions the way a compass might for a traveler. It does not dictate the exact steps one must take, but it shows directions, terrains, and possible detours. Chani often emphasizes that every chart contains contradictions. A person may be represented by a fiery sun in Aries, signaling drive and initiative, while also carrying a cautious, sensitive moon in Cancer that yearns for safety and emotional connection. Rather than seeing this as a conflict to fix, she frames it as a dynamic to understand, two different currents that shape the inner river of life. This metaphor of maps and landscapes allows her readers and clients to imagine themselves as explorers of their own psyche.
The planets become markers along the trail. Saturn represents boundaries and lessons. Venus points toward love, pleasure, and value. Mercury indicates communication and thought. But unlike a fixed geographical map, the birth chart invites reinterpretation. As life unfolds, one returns to the chart not to find rigid answers, but to engage in a dialogue with its symbols, discovering how they evolve through time. One of Chani's distinctive contributions is her insistence that these maps are not about destiny, but about context. She often reminds her audience that astrology cannot predict every twist of fate. Instead, it gives language to patterns and possibilities. For example, someone with a strong emphasis on the 10th house, associated with career and public life, may feel a strong pull toward leadership or visibility. But whether that manifests as a political role, a creative profession, or community organizing depends on choices, circumstances, and, importantly, the individual's will. The chart shows the terrain, but the traveler still decides how to walk it. Chani is also deeply attentive to how these maps reflect not only individual tendencies, but also social realities. For marginalized communities, she points out, a chart's challenges cannot be divorced from structural oppression. A person whose chart suggests themes of struggle or survival is not fated to pain. Rather, their cosmic map acknowledges realities shaped by systems of inequality. By framing astrology in this way, she positions the birth chart as both personal and political, a reminder that self-discovery exists within a collective context. Another important element of her work is the focus on empowerment through interpretation. She frequently contrasts her practice with older traditions of astrology that leaned heavily on fatalism. Instead of telling someone they are doomed to misfortune because of a planetary placement, she reframes these aspects as opportunities for growth. A square between Mars and Saturn, often considered difficult, might indicate frustration and blocks. But Chani would ask, where in your life can this energy teach you resilience? What wisdom comes from learning patience? In this way, the birth chart becomes not a verdict, but a teaching tool. Her writing and workshops often describe the chart as a roadmap of healing. For example, she might interpret the placement of Chiron, known in astrology as the wounded healer, as a key to understanding recurring life challenges and the paths to overcome them. Chiron in the 7th house could suggest wounds around partnership and trust, but also a profound ability to become a guide for others navigating relational healing. By giving meaning to wounds, she transforms them into sources of strength, reminding people that maps often highlight both treacherous paths and hidden treasures. This perspective has resonated widely because it gives people permission to embrace their complexity. Many who turn to astrology do so in moments of confusion, seeking clarity about why they act or feel in certain ways. When Chani explains that a chart is a map rather than a sentence, it liberates them from shame. The rigid categories of good or bad signs dissolve into a more nuanced understanding. Every placement, every planetary aspect is part of a larger landscape that can be navigated with awareness and compassion. In addition, Chani encourages people to return to their charts again and again. Just as travelers revisit maps when entering new territories, individuals can consult their charts at life's turning points, moving cities, beginning relationships, starting new careers. Each time, the chart may reveal a new layer of meaning, not because the planets have changed, but because the person has. Experience reshapes interpretation. What once seemed like an obstacle may later appear as a source of wisdom. Ultimately, Chani Nicholas's view of birth charts is deeply relational. They are not static documents, but living guides that walk alongside people throughout their journeys. To hold one's chart is to hold a mirror that reflects both the complexity of the self and the infinite possibilities of becoming. In this way, astrology ceases to be about control or prediction and instead becomes about orientation. Where am I now? What patterns surround me? And how can I navigate toward wholeness? Through this framework, Chani invites everyone to see their birth chart not as a mystery to solve once and for all, but as a lifelong companion. A personal map, yes, but also a reminder that the terrain of life is rich, unpredictable, and filled with opportunities for growth. The chart does not demand obedience, it offers guidance. And in Chani's philosophy, that guidance is always in service of healing, empowerment, and self-discovery. Chapter 4: The Moon and Emotional Awareness. Among all the celestial bodies studied in astrology, the moon holds a particularly intimate role. Where the sun is often described as the essence of identity, the moon reflects the inner tides, the subconscious, the private emotions, and the ways in which one nurtures and feels nurtured. For Chani, the moon is not simply an object orbiting our planet, nor just an astrological symbol, but rather a mirror of human vulnerability and resilience. Her approach to lunar awareness demonstrates how cycles of waxing and waning can illuminate the rhythm of our emotional lives. In Chani's teachings, the moon is a guide to emotional awareness. Unlike planetary transits that unfold over years or months, the moon moves quickly. It changes signs every 2.5 days, completing its cycle in about 29.5 days. This speed gives the moon a unique influence. It acts as a daily barometer, revealing the subtle shifts in mood and energy that weave through human experience. By following its movement, individuals can become attuned to their emotional landscape with greater sensitivity. She often describes the new moon as a moment of beginning, not in the grand, dramatic sense, but in a quiet and personal way. The new moon is a time when the night sky is dark, when the moon is hidden from view. For Chani, this absence is not a loss, but an invitation, an opportunity to plant intentions in the fertile soil of possibility. In her guided writings and workshops, she encourages people to pause during the new moon, to ask themselves what they are ready to invite into their lives. It is a practice of listening inward, of aligning desire with the subtle rhythm of the cosmos. Conversely, the full moon is, in Chani's vision, a moment of illumination. When the moon is at its brightest, reflecting the full light of the sun, it reveals what was previously hidden. This can be a time of clarity, when emotions rise to the surface, sometimes overwhelming in their intensity. She notes that full moons often coincide with moments of culmination or confrontation, not necessarily negative, but charged with a sense of truth revealed. For Chani, embracing the full moon is about allowing oneself to feel deeply, without judgment, recognizing that heightened emotion is part of the cyclical ebb and flow of life. Between these poles, the waxing and waning phases provide their own lessons. The waxing moon, growing in light, symbolizes growth, effort, and momentum. It is a time, she teaches, to pursue what was seeded during the new moon, to take steps toward manifesting intentions. The waning moon, in contrast, asks for release and reflection. As the light diminishes, so too does the need to hold tightly to what no longer serves. It is in this cycle of build and release that Chani finds a metaphor for healing. Emotional awareness is not about permanence, but about learning to flow with change. Chani's interpretation of the moon also emphasizes its connection to the body. Just as the moon influences the tides, she draws parallels to how it reflects the ebbs and flows of human energy. She invites her readers and listeners to track not only their emotions, but also their physical states in relation to lunar phases. By observing patterns, such as moments of fatigue, creativity, restlessness, or peace, individuals can begin to map a personal rhythm. For many, this practice provides validation, a sense that their inner world is not random, but interconnected with a larger natural cycle. A central theme in her lunar teachings is compassion. Too often, she argues, society frames emotions as weaknesses or demands productivity regardless of internal states. The moon, however, reminds us that feelings are not only natural but necessary. In recognizing one's emotional tides, Chani believes people can learn to soften, to give themselves permission to rest, grieve, celebrate, or simply be. This acceptance can be especially powerful for those who feel disconnected from dominant narratives of constant achievement. In her words, lunar awareness is a radical form of self-care. Moreover, Chani links the moon to ancestry and collective memory. The lunar cycle has been observed for millennia, guiding agricultural practices, rituals, and storytelling traditions. For many cultures, the moon was a calendar, a teacher, and a sacred presence. By reclaiming attention to lunar rhythms, she suggests individuals reconnect not only with themselves, but with a lineage of human wisdom. This acknowledgement of continuity offers a sense of belonging, particularly for those seeking spiritual frameworks that honor both individuality and community. Her emphasis on the moon is also political in subtle but profound ways. In valuing rest and emotional truth, she challenges systems that prioritize productivity over well-being. In encouraging people to honor their inner rhythms, she proposes a shift away from structures that exploit human energy without regard for balance. In this sense, lunar awareness becomes an act of resistance. To rest is to reclaim autonomy over one's body and emotions. To honor cycles is to reject the illusion of constant linear growth. Chani often incorporates guided practices into her lunar teachings. Journaling during new moons and full moons, for example, helps individuals articulate feelings and intentions. Rituals, whether lighting a candle, sitting in meditation, or simply taking time for silence, create a container for emotional exploration. She emphasizes that such practices do not need to be elaborate or esoteric. Their power lies in attention and presence. By carving out space for reflection, one cultivates a deeper relationship with the self, a relationship anchored in compassion and honesty. The moon, in Chani's framework, ultimately becomes a teacher of impermanence and resilience. Emotions, like lunar phases, shift and change. No state, whether joy or sorrow, lasts forever. In learning to witness these shifts without clinging or resistance, individuals can foster greater emotional intelligence. This awareness does not erase pain or difficulty, but it equips people with tools to navigate life's fluctuations with grace. Through her writings, workshops, and digital platforms, Chani Nicholas has brought this lunar wisdom to a wide audience. For many, her approach resonates because it offers both structure and freedom, a structure in the repeating cycles of the moon, and freedom in the permission to experience emotions without shame. In a world that often demands constancy, she reminds us that change is natural, that the waxing and waning of feelings is part of what it means to be human. The moon, then, is not distant or abstract. It is a companion, rising and setting each night, marking time not with mechanical precision, but with soft illumination. For Chani Nicholas, to be aware of the moon is to be aware of oneself. It is to recognize that beneath the rhythms of modern life, there exists a deeper rhythm, one that is ancient, enduring, and profoundly human.
Chapter 5. Astrology and Social Justice. Chani Nicholas has always emphasized that astrology is not merely a personal tool, it is also a lens through which to understand collective dynamics and social structures. She approaches the cosmos not only as a reflection of individual experience, but as a mirror for societal patterns. For her, the planets and their movements are not detached from the world we inhabit. They intersect with history, culture, and power, offering insights into the larger forces that shape communities. In this sense, astrology becomes a framework for social awareness, connection, and advocacy. From the outset, Chani has always challenged the notion that astrology is purely self-centered. Many traditional readings focus on personal gain, luck, or destiny. Chani, however, integrates a consciousness of justice, equality, and collective responsibility. She encourages her audience to consider how the energies reflected in a chart interact with larger societal contexts. For example, a chart that shows struggles with authority may not only reflect personal challenges, but also indicate patterns influenced by systemic oppression. By situating astrology within social realities, she helps people understand the intersection of the personal and the political. One of the ways Chani bridges astrology and social justice is through the interpretation of generational planets. Outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto move slowly, affecting entire cohorts and shaping social consciousness. She uses these planetary movements to discuss shifts in cultural awareness, activism, and transformation. For instance, Pluto's transit through Capricorn can be seen not only in terms of personal power dynamics, but also as a reflection of structural change in institutions and governance. Similarly, Neptune in Pisces might speak to collective dreams, illusions, or spiritual movements. By connecting these cosmic cycles to societal patterns, Chani invites her followers to see their lives as part of a broader story of change and possibility. Chani also highlights the importance of representation and inclusivity in astrology. She is vocal about centering marginalized voices and experiences in her teachings. By doing so, she ensures that astrology is not a tool for reinforcing stereotypes or exclusion, but rather a medium that affirms diverse identities and lived realities. Astrology, in her hands, becomes a platform for empathy, understanding not only one's own chart, but also the charts and experiences of others, thereby cultivating solidarity and collective awareness. Her work often emphasizes activism as a natural extension of this perspective. Astrology is not merely for self-reflection, it is a guide for how one might engage meaningfully with the world. Awareness of one's chart can illuminate strengths, tendencies, and potential blind spots, all of which can be channeled toward contributing to social change. By understanding personal and collective energies, Chani believes individuals can make choices that promote equity, compassion, and justice. Astrology, in this sense, becomes a practice of ethical engagement as much as self-discovery. She also encourages conversations about power, privilege, and systemic challenges.
She interprets charts through this lens, asking questions like, how does this individual's position in the world intersect with their planetary alignments? How can they use awareness of their own tendencies to contribute positively to collective struggles? By framing astrology in terms of responsibility and consciousness, she positions it as a tool for moral reflection, not just personal insight. Moreover, she integrates social justice into everyday astrological practice. Whether through workshops, social media, or her written work, Chani emphasizes that understanding one's chart involves recognizing one's role in communities and the larger world. Astrology becomes a call to action, to be aware of inequities, to cultivate compassion, and to align personal growth with collective well-being. Her teachings suggest that personal healing and societal transformation are deeply intertwined. To work on oneself is also to engage with the world ethically and empathetically. Another key element is her focus on collective cycles. Eclipses, retrogrades, and planetary transits often correspond with societal upheavals or shifts in consciousness. Chani interprets these moments not as arbitrary events, but as cosmic invitations to pay attention to patterns of inequality, cultural change, or emerging opportunities for justice. By recognizing these rhythms, people can anticipate not only personal growth, but also the ways in which society is moving, creating a sense of orientation amid uncertainty. Ultimately, Chani reframes astrology as a socially aware practice. It is not merely about horoscopes or personal traits. It is about situating oneself within a broader context of collective challenges and potentials. Through her work, astrology becomes a mirror for empathy, a tool for understanding, and a guide for action. By connecting planetary archetypes to social justice, she bridges the personal with the political, demonstrating that the stars can illuminate both the inner self and the path toward a more equitable world. In her hands, astrology is both poetic and practical, mystical and grounded. It invites individuals to see themselves not in isolation, but as part of a network of relationships, histories, and shared struggles. By understanding these patterns, one gains not only insight into personal challenges, but also the perspective to participate consciously in collective transformation. For Chani, this is the true power of the cosmos, to guide, illuminate, and inspire meaningful engagement with the world around us.
Chapter 6. The Language of Planets. For Chani Nicholas, the planets are not distant, cold celestial bodies. They are vibrant symbols, each with a distinct personality, tone, and vocabulary. Her approach to astrology transforms these planetary influences from abstract concepts into accessible, inclusive language that speaks directly to human experience. She understands that for astrology to resonate widely, it must feel relatable, not intimidating, and this requires translating the movement of planets into words that honor the complexity of human lives while remaining clear and empathic. Chani often begins with the idea that every planet embodies a set of energies, motivations, and archetypes. Mercury, for example, is associated with communication, thought patterns, and information processing. But she goes beyond textbook definitions, describing Mercury as the way we tell our stories to ourselves and others, emphasizing how thought and speech are deeply intertwined with identity. Venus, often called the planet of love, in her language becomes not just romance, but the expression of what one values: pleasure, aesthetics, relationships, and self-worth. Mars, the fiery planet of action, represents assertion, courage, and sometimes conflict, but also the ways in which we protect our boundaries. By framing planets in this nuanced, human-centered way, she encourages people to engage with astrology as a living, breathing conversation.
One of the remarkable aspects of Chani's planetary language is inclusivity. She avoids phrasing that imply judgment or moral hierarchy. A difficult aspect is never a flaw, and a favorable aspect is not inherently a guarantee of success. Each planetary configuration is a story with multiple chapters, capable of teaching lessons in resilience, compassion, or self-awareness. In doing so, she creates a framework where all personalities, identities, and life circumstances can find reflection without shame or exclusion. Her writing and social media content often emphasize that astrology is a language of potential, not a system of limitations. Chani also emphasizes relationships between planets, known as aspects. Squares, trines, conjunctions, terms that can feel opaque in traditional astrology, are translated into the rhythm of human experience. A square is tension that pushes for growth. A trine is a flow of energy that facilitates ease. A conjunction is an intense meeting point of forces. In her explanations, these are not formulas to memorize, but narratives to explore. For instance, someone with a square between Saturn and Venus might face challenges in love and self-worth. But Chani frames this as an opportunity to understand boundaries, develop patience, and cultivate depth in relationships. This narrative approach allows people to see their charts as living stories, rather than lists of mechanical predictions. The language of planets for Chani is also deeply connected to personal empowerment. She encourages her audience to see planetary placements not as scripts they must follow, but as invitations to understand patterns, make conscious choices, and claim agency. Astrology becomes a mirror. The planets reflect tendencies. Tendencies can be observed, and observation enables choice. By using words that are approachable and resonant, she ensures that astrology serves as a tool of clarity rather than confusion. Another element of her planetary language is emotional intelligence. She often ties planets to feelings, instincts, and relational dynamics, demonstrating how cosmic archetypes play out in real life. Jupiter is not just expansion, it's generosity of spirit and the search for meaning. Pluto is not merely transformation, it is power, intensity, and sometimes the confrontation with what must be released. Her approach makes complex astrological dynamics feel psychologically and emotionally meaningful, bridging the gap between symbolism and lived experience. Chani's accessible planetary language also allows astrology to intersect with other aspects of life. People are not just charts, they are workers, partners, creators, activists, and survivors. By translating planetary energies into everyday terms, she ensures that astrology is relevant and practical. Mars can teach assertiveness in a workplace. Venus can illuminate dynamics in friendship. Saturn can provide lessons in setting boundaries. This translation into lived experience makes her guidance actionable, without losing the poetic depth of the cosmos. Equally important is her use of inclusive language in terms of identity. Chani recognizes that astrology has historically been used to categorize and stereotype. Her language actively counters this by honoring diverse genders, sexualities, and life paths. She reframes planetary energies in ways that anyone can relate to, avoiding assumptions or prescriptive judgments. This inclusivity makes her planetary interpretations a tool not only for personal insight, but for affirmation and belonging. And finally, Chani's planetary language is infused with narrative and metaphor, which gives astrology a literary and poetic dimension. The planets are characters, their interactions plot lines, and the birth chart is the unfolding story of a life. This approach resonates deeply because it allows people to engage emotionally and imaginatively, creating a dialogue between self-perception and cosmic reflection. The planets are no longer abstract, They are companions, guides, and teachers, offering insight at every turn of life's journey. Through this lens, astrology becomes not a rigid system, but a living language. By speaking in terms that are accessible, inclusive, and emotionally resonant, Chani Nicholas ensures that her audience can understand and apply the wisdom of the stars. The planets in her hands are not distant objects, but mirrors, teachers, and guides, inviting all of us to read the celestial story written uniquely for each human life.
Chapter 7. Astrology for Self-Acceptance. In the natalist tradition, astrology is ultimately a practice of self-compassion. She approaches charts not as tools for judgment or critique, but as mirrors that reflect the fullness of an individual's experience, including both strengths and vulnerabilities. In her philosophy, understanding one's chart is less about measuring success or failure, and more about cultivating an authentic relationship with the self. Astrology, in this framework, becomes a guide for self-acceptance, helping individuals embrace their complexity without shame or self-criticism. Chani often begins by reframing common misconceptions. Many people approach astrology expecting to find a rigid formula, a categorization of traits into good and bad. She challenges this binary thinking by emphasizing nuance. Every planetary placement has gifts and lessons. Each aspect contains tension and potential. A challenging alignment is not a flaw, it is a clue, a point of growth, an opportunity to understand oneself more deeply. Conversely, harmonious placements are not guarantees of ease, but invitations to recognize innate strengths and to develop them responsibly. One of her key techniques is guiding clients and readers to explore their charts through the lens of curiosity rather than judgment. She encourages questions like, why might I respond this way in relationships? What do these repeated patterns in my life reveal about my needs? How can I honor my emotional rhythms without criticism? By transforming astrology into a reflective conversation, Chani positions it as a tool for self-discovery rather than self-assessment. This approach fosters a compassionate mindset, enabling individuals to view themselves with kindness and empathy. Central to this process is the recognition of contradictions. Humans are inherently complex, and the chart reflects that reality. A person may have a bold Mars in Aries, signaling drive and courage, while carrying a sensitive moon in Pisces, indicating deep emotional awareness. Chani frames these contrasts as natural, not problematic, emphasizing that self-acceptance involves integrating all aspects of one's being. By seeing charts as multidimensional, she helps individuals move beyond simplistic labels and cultivate a holistic understanding of themselves. Chani also integrates the notion of cyclical growth. She highlights that self-acceptance is not a static state, but a lifelong practice. The planetary cycles, retrogrades, and transits offer ongoing lessons in flexibility, resilience, and adaptation. For instance, Saturn's transit through a natal chart may bring challenges and delays, prompting reflection on boundaries and responsibilities. Instead of interpreting these periods as punishment, Chani presents them as natural opportunities for maturation and self-compassion. Astrology, in this sense, mirrors life's rhythms, encouraging patience with oneself and understanding of one's own timing. Another aspect of her teaching focuses on language. Chani is deliberate in how she describes planetary energies, ensuring that interpretations are affirming rather than critical. She avoids language that induces shame or fear, replacing it with words that validate experience and encourage growth.
A difficult aspect is reframed as an invitation to awareness or an opportunity to cultivate resilience. By shaping astrology as a supportive, empowering dialogue, she fosters a culture of self-acceptance that resonates deeply with diverse audiences. Her approach is particularly empowering for those who have faced societal pressures to conform. Chani emphasizes that charts reflect individuality, not societal expectations. Understanding one's chart allows people to honor their authentic selves rather than living according to external standards. For many, this realization is transformative. It provides permission to embrace uniqueness, to pursue paths aligned with personal values, and to trust one's inner compass. Astrology becomes a mirror not of conformity, but of authenticity. Chani also addresses the intersection of astrology and mental health. She frames emotional challenges not as deficiencies, but as navigable patterns. By interpreting difficult aspects with compassion, she encourages individuals to recognize that vulnerability is not weakness. For example, a challenging moon placement may indicate heightened sensitivity, but this sensitivity can also enable deep empathy and intuition. Astrology, in this way, helps individuals reframe perceived limitations as sources of insight, fostering self-acceptance and emotional resilience. In her workshops and writings, Chani often pairs chart interpretation with practical exercises. Journaling prompts, reflective questions, and guided observations help individuals translate astrological insights into real-world understanding. This integration reinforces the central message: astrology is a tool for self-awareness and acceptance, not judgment. Ultimately, Chani Nicholas presents astrology as a bridge between cosmic patterns and personal understanding. It offers a language to articulate who we are, why we feel what we feel, and how we might move through life with grace. By centering self-compassion, she transforms astrology from a predictive or prescriptive system into a deeply human practice. Each chart becomes a roadmap not to perfection, but to understanding, inviting individuals to meet themselves fully, honor their journey, and cultivate a lifelong relationship with their inner world.
Chapter 8. Astrology and Relationships. For Chani Nicholas, astrology is a profound tool for understanding human connection. She approaches relationships not as formulas to predict compatibility, but as dynamic, evolving partnerships that reflect both individual and collective growth. Her philosophy emphasizes awareness, empathy, and communication, recognizing that every connection, romantic, familial, or platonic, is influenced by the interplay of personalities, needs, and the cosmic rhythms reflected in the charts of those involved. Chani often begins by reframing traditional notions of compatibility. Rather than rigidly matching signs like Leo with Aries or Taurus with Virgo, she emphasizes the importance of context and nuance. Every chart is a complex mosaic of planetary placements, aspects, and houses. Relationships are less about predetermined outcomes and more about how two or more individuals navigate their unique energies together. By focusing on these subtleties, she empowers people to approach connections with curiosity and intention, rather than expectation or judgment. Central to her approach is the concept of self-awareness as a foundation for healthy relationships. Chani teaches that understanding one's own chart is not merely a personal exercise, but a relational one. Knowing how one communicates, Mercury, desires connection, Venus, and asserts boundaries, Mars, provides essential insights into patterns that may influence interactions. With this awareness, individuals can recognize recurring themes, triggers, and strengths, making space for empathy and conscious choice within their relationships. One of her signature teachings involves the role of the moon in relational dynamics. The moon represents emotional needs, instinctual responses, and subconscious patterns, which are often at the core of intimacy challenges. By understanding one's lunar placement and that of a partner, Chani suggests that individuals can anticipate emotional rhythms, honor differences, and foster mutual care. For example, a person with a moon in Cancer may seek nurturing and security, while a partner with a moon in Aquarius might prioritize independence and space. Recognizing these tendencies can prevent misunderstanding and cultivate respect for each other's emotional landscapes. Chani also explores the significance of synastry and composite charts, tools in astrology that examine how two charts interact. Synastry compares planetary placements between two individuals, highlighting areas of harmony, tension, and growth potential. Composite charts, in contrast, blend two charts into a single entity, representing the relationship itself as a living organism. Through these frameworks, Chani encourages people to see relationships as evolving, multi-dimensional experiences rather than static snapshots. Challenges are interpreted not as failure, but as opportunities for learning and shared growth. Communication, she emphasizes, is both literal and symbolic. Mercury, the planet of thought and expression, reveals how individuals process information, express feelings, and engage in dialogue. Understanding Mercury's influence can help partners recognize differences in communication styles, leading to greater clarity and patience. Similarly, Venus offers insights into desires for connection, affection, and intimacy, allowing for a deeper appreciation of how each person experiences love. Mars, as the planet of assertion, highlights how conflicts may arise and how boundaries are negotiated. By translating these planetary energies into relational language, Chani empowers people to navigate both harmony and tension with awareness. Another key aspect of her approach is healing. Chani believes relationships are a mirror for personal growth. Patterns of conflict, attraction, and emotional response often reflect unresolved issues or subconscious dynamics. Astrology provides a lens to identify these patterns, not to assign blame, but to encourage understanding and transformation. By recognizing the role of cosmic energies, individuals can develop compassion for themselves and their partners, fostering a space where vulnerability is honored and emotional depth is cultivated. Chani's teachings also address the diversity of relationships. She emphasizes inclusivity, recognizing that love and connection exist in myriad forms. Astrology, in her hands, is a language that supports people across genders, orientations, and cultural backgrounds, offering tools to navigate relational complexities while respecting each person's identity and experience. This approach ensures that astrology remains a framework for empowerment rather than exclusion. Timing, too, plays a significant role in her relational astrology. Chani highlights that planetary cycles, eclipses, and retrogrades can illuminate periods of challenge, opportunity, or transformation within relationships. Awareness of these cycles allows individuals and couples to approach shifts with intention, understanding that cosmic rhythms can amplify experiences and guide reflection. By situating relational dynamics within this broader temporal context, she provides a sense of perspective, reminding people that growth often unfolds in phases rather than all at once. Ultimately, Chani Nicholas presents astrology as a compassionate guide to human connection. Her work transforms charts into tools for empathy, communication, and mutual growth, emphasizing that relationships are both mirrors and teachers. Through her lens, astrology is not about predicting fate, but about fostering awareness, helping individuals navigate love, intimacy, and connection with consciousness, patience, and a commitment to seeing themselves and others fully. In this way, relationships become a sacred laboratory of self-knowledge, shared experience, and emotional evolution. Astrology, as Chani teaches, illuminates the paths we walk with others, offering insights that deepen understanding, cultivate empathy, and inspire the ongoing work of connection and care.
Chapter 9. The Digital Astrologer. In the modern era, astrology has found a new home online, and few astrologers have navigated this digital transformation as effectively as Chani Nicholas. From social media platforms to apps, podcasts, and digital newsletters, Chani has built a bridge between ancient astrological wisdom and contemporary technology. Her work as a digital astrologer has expanded the reach of astrology, making it accessible, inclusive, and practical for new generations eager to explore the cosmos from their own devices. Chani's digital journey began with a recognition of the Internet's potential to democratize astrology. Traditionally, astrology was often confined to books, printed horoscopes, or in-person consultations. She saw an opportunity to bring personalized guidance to a global audience, breaking barriers of geography, accessibility, and exclusivity. Through online platforms, she could reach individuals who might never have encountered astrology otherwise, providing tools, insights, and a sense of connection. Her approach emphasized that the cosmos is not distant or esoteric. It is a resource for everyone, available at the click of a screen. Social media, in particular, became a cornerstone of her digital presence. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and later YouTube allowed Chani to communicate directly with a diverse audience. Her posts often combined astrological analysis with empowering messages, creative visuals, and inclusive language. By engaging in conversation with her followers, answering questions, and creating interactive content, she transformed what could have been a one-way delivery of information into a community-centered experience. Followers felt not only informed, but seen, heard, and supported, reflecting her commitment to both accessibility and relational depth. Beyond social media, Chani has leveraged apps and newsletters to provide structured, personalized guidance. Her mobile applications offer daily, weekly, and monthly insights, integrating birth chart information, planetary transits, and thematic cycles. The digital format allows for interactive engagement. Users can track progress, reflect on patterns, and receive notifications that correspond with significant astrological events. This technological innovation aligns with her philosophy that astrology should serve as a practical tool for navigating life, rather than remaining an abstract or distant discipline. Books have also played a key role in her digital ecosystem. Her publications often blend traditional astrological knowledge with contemporary frameworks for self-awareness, healing, and empowerment. They serve as bridges between analog and digital worlds, providing both depth and accessibility. Her literary voice reflects the same values she brings to digital platforms: inclusivity, clarity, and emotional resonance. By combining written guidance with digital tools, Chani offers a multifaceted approach that meets people where they are, whether online, in print, or in interactive formats. Chani's success as a digital astrologer also highlights the importance of adaptability and innovation. The pace of technological change can be overwhelming, but she has consistently embraced new tools to expand reach and enhance user experience. Whether through visually engaging content, mobile applications, or interactive workshops, she has demonstrated a keen understanding of how technology can amplify astrology's relevance. Her work reflects a balance between honoring traditional wisdom and embracing contemporary methods, ensuring that astrology remains both credible and approachable in the digital age. Inclusivity remains central to her digital practice. In online forums and apps, Chani ensures that language, visuals, and narratives reflect diverse identities and experiences. She emphasizes that astrology is not a one-size-fits-all system, but a personal and culturally sensitive practice. Her commitment to representation fosters a sense of belonging for users who may feel marginalized or overlooked, positioning astrology as a platform for empowerment rather than exclusion. Another aspect of her digital work is education. Chani frequently offers workshops, webinars, and tutorials, teaching followers how to interpret charts, understand planetary cycles, and integrate astrology into daily life. This educational focus transforms her digital presence from mere content delivery into an active learning community. Users are not passive consumers, but engaged participants, exploring the complexities of the cosmos with guidance that is accessible, interactive, and deeply supportive. Her digital influence has also expanded astrology's cultural relevance. By speaking to younger generations through familiar platforms, Chani ensures that astrology evolves alongside societal and technological changes. She positions it not as a relic of the past, but as a living practice, capable of providing insight, guidance, and empowerment in a world of constant flux. Through this digital lens, astrology becomes a tool for connection, reflection, and action, reaching individuals who might never have sought out traditional consultations or publications. Ultimately, Chani Nicholas exemplifies the digital astrologer as both innovator and guide. She merges ancient knowledge with modern technology, creating accessible pathways for understanding, healing, and personal growth. Her digital work emphasizes inclusivity, empowerment, and engagement, demonstrating that astrology can be not only a tool for self-discovery, but also a bridge between individuals and the wider world. In her hands, the digital landscape becomes a space where the stars are within reach, inviting exploration, reflection, and transformation for all who seek guidance among the planets.
Conclusion. As we reach the culmination of this exploration into Chani Nicholas's astrological philosophy, a clear vision emerges. Astrology, in her hands, is far more than a set of predictions or signs. It is a lens for understanding ourselves, our relationships, and the world around us. From her early journey into astrology to her modern role as a digital guide, Chani's work consistently emphasizes awareness, empathy, and empowerment. Her teachings invite us to see charts not as prescriptive scripts, but as mirrors of potential, complexity, and growth. Throughout the chapters, we have witnessed how Chani integrates personal and collective dimensions. She frames astrology as a practice of self-compassion, encouraging individuals to embrace their strengths and vulnerabilities alike. At the same time, she connects the cosmic to the societal, demonstrating that the movements of planets and cycles of the heavens resonate not only within us, but across communities, cultures, and generations. This dual perspective transforms astrology into both a personal tool and a social compass, bridging the intimate and the global. Her emphasis on emotional awareness, lunar cycles, and relational dynamics highlights astrology's capacity to guide us through the nuances of human experience. By understanding ourselves through planetary patterns, we gain insights into communication, love, personal growth, and healing. Chani's approach reminds us that challenges reflected in charts are invitations for reflection, learning, and conscious action rather than judgments or limitations. Astrology becomes a gentle guide, offering clarity and perspective amidst the complexities of life. In addition, Chani's work in digital spaces has redefined how astrology reaches contemporary audiences.
Through apps, social media, books, and interactive platforms, she has made this ancient practice accessible, inclusive, and practical for modern life. Her digital presence amplifies her core values: representation, inclusivity, empowerment, ensuring that astrology resonates with diverse communities worldwide. In doing so, she demonstrates that ancient wisdom can evolve alongside technology, remaining relevant, approachable, and transformative. Perhaps most profoundly, Chani positions astrology as a tool for navigating change, both personal and collective. The world is in constant flux, yet the cosmic cycles provide orientation, rhythm, and insight. By understanding planetary patterns, retrogrades, eclipses, and transits, we can approach uncertainty with perspective, adaptability, and hope. Astrology, in Chani's vision, is not about controlling fate, but about partnering consciously with the universe, harnessing opportunities for growth, awareness, and ethical engagement. Ultimately, Chani Nicholas offers a vision of astrology that is deeply human. It celebrates individuality while fostering empathy, bridges personal reflection with social consciousness, and transforms abstract patterns into practical guidance. Through her work, we learn that astrology is a practice of connection to ourselves, to others, and to the larger cycles of life. It invites us to approach each moment with curiosity, compassion, and conscious intention, illuminating paths toward understanding, transformation, and self-acceptance. In embracing her teachings, we are reminded that the stars are not distant arbiters of destiny, but companions on the journey of life. They reflect our potentials, guide our growth, and offer insight into the rhythms that shape both the inner and outer worlds. Chani Nicholas's astrology, at once poetic and practical, empowers us to navigate life with awareness, resilience, and a profound sense of connection to the cosmos, to our communities, and to ourselves.